Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what we hope will be a good session this morning. As you may know me, I'm Peter Turner. I'm the IT Director at the Diocese of Washington and our community of churches. And we're joined for this training today by Pam Swarfield, a certified realm trainer from ACS Technologies. Pam provides training for many Episcopal churches and other denominations across the country. And we're really happy to have her with us for this session. We also have Rebecca Music, also from ACS, to help with any questions and other issues that you may have related to this topic. And I also want to thank Jennifer Gamba, our Special Missioner for the School for Christian Faith and Leadership from the diocesan staff, for her support in getting this all set up for us. And for these sessions, there are as you may know from our school, which we've recently launched at the diocese, we have numerous offerings there on the website and different topics. So check those out at edow.org. And thanks also to Mildred Reyes from the diocesan staff also for helping with this meeting. So firstly, what do we want to accomplish out of our session today? Our hope is that we'll have an understanding of how and why tracking attendance should be part of your reopening plans, some clarity on how you can use Realm as a way for parishioners and visitors to indicate that they will be attending in-person worship at your parish, and options for tracking who attended using check-in or attendance features in Realm. So we'll be kind of diving into that, and there'll be the chance to ask questions, and so have those just kind of as we go. So a quick word on the format. As with the last session, I'm going to start with what I hope will be a brief introduction. Then Pam will lead us through some features and options in Realm to manage reservations, attendance tracking, and check-in. And then we'll open up for general questions. So this session is the second of three.
That's the note side.
So if everyone could just kind of mute their microphone, if you could, during the meeting, and then unmute at the end when we have questions, that would be great. As I said, this session is the second of three in what we're calling a Realm Refresh series. So please don't be shy about opening up with questions on today at the sort of end of the session. And then there's a third session as well on using Realm to manage your volunteers. So hopefully you'll be available to join that. That's on October 1st. And again, that's on the school page, the School for Christian Faith and Leadership. You can register there and encourage others to register for that session as well. We hope that'll be a fruitful time together. So we're recording this. We'll be recording this session, and we'll be sending out the recording to you after the session, along with slides and so on from this meeting. If you have questions as we move through, make a note of them in the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. And we'll address those either during or at the end of the session. And as we move through, as you see things that Pam is or I'm talking about, make a note of those in the chat feature. So if you're joining by phone this morning, please mute your phone as well, just to cut back on the noise. So I'm now just going to share slide with you. You should see that. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Great, thanks everyone. So the discussion today on managing in-person worship attendance is designed to be somewhat in sync with where you are with reopening church buildings for worship in accordance with local government and diocesan guidelines. To start with a quick recap on the parish opening timeline. As you probably know, on May 4th, the bishops of Washington, Maryland, and Virginia issued a joint statement on a phased approach to reopening. And then on the 18th of May, Bishop Marianne issued the checklist for regathering for all churches in the Diocese of Washington, including specific requirements for reopening buildings. And on the July 8th, there were additional guidelines concerning communion practices. So all documents relating to reopenings are on our diocesan website on the COVID-19 Resource Hub section, which you'll find them all there. One thing I keep coming back to here is the language. We use the terms regathering and reopening interchangeably, but we have in fact miraculously, with some bumps, been continuing to gather this whole time. So what we're really talking here is about reopening rather than regathering. We're opening our physical spaces up again. And so that's really what we're talking about here. A quick pause here, as we have found, while traumatic and jarring for many, the shift from in-person to online worship presented an entirely different set of challenges to those presented now as physically reopening. So as these words from author and pastor Kerry Newhoff reflect, there is yet no vaccine available, and many individuals and congregations are not yet at a place where they're ready to return to in-person worship. So after all, a lot of what kind of is almost an unthinkable place where many Episcopal congregations are now more used to worshiping online than in person, which we would never have imagined. The challenges of reopening are many, and both in providing reassurance and safety to our parishioners and in overcoming the unfamiliar logistical and liturgical challenges to reopen. So to continue with this recap, as I mentioned, the diocesan guidelines are on the diocesan website. In addition to these are the guidelines and restrictions by local authorities in our diocese, and these are from the websites of local counties and the DC government. One thing to bear in mind for this discussion, we may see potential rollbacks on capacities depending on infection rates as we move into flu season. And so our reservation attendance process needs to be flexible accordingly. So why track who is attending? Why do this? We can see maybe asking like why asking people to use a reservation system of some kind is helpful. After all, we want to follow the guidance set by local authorities. For capacity, we'll hopefully only need to do this for a while until a more sort of definitive treatment or vaccine is available. But in the meantime, why go the additional step of tracking who's attending at the door of our parishes? So why not just keep people at a distance, wear masks, and see how it goes? So the CDC, a great website in its guidance to faith-based communities, recommends that in addition to following all familiar health guidelines, congregations also track congregants who may become sick and to ensure that others around them are safe. So as the host of the worship service, if we don't know who attended the worship service on a particular day and time and someone becomes sick, it will be on the parish to notify the local authorities and any others to present potentially others present who were potentially affected and to take any appropriate response in cleaning thoroughly, as well as ensuring that an infected person doesn't seek to then attend again in person until they have followed quarantine guidelines. A graphic illustration on this page here, this slide, shows how two people in a church in Arkansas with no symptoms became the center of a significant COVID outbreak, both in the congregation and in the community. And so it's a reason that we're being careful and moving slowly and cautiously as we begin to reopen. So trends in reopening, wanted to mention some reopening trends. So the Pew Foundation says that only 30% of church members have attended in-person worship in the past month. So a recent poll showed that, whereas 92% of people polled say they intend to resume previous levels of attendance once the outbreak is over. So this is from Pew. We're not sure who the poll covered exactly, but we hope that optimistic number is accurate. In our diocese, 50% of congregations have submitted reopening plans and been approved, and 28% of those are gathering outside currently. But of course, as the weather changes, we'll probably be moving inside. So looking at, let's pivot from looking at that trends and some safety requirements to looking at how we can do this. So while this discussion is focused on Realm to manage reservations, there are some options I've seen being used or had discussions with parishes about. So I just wanted to cover those in addition to Realm and mention those. Realm, obviously, what we're going to talk about today, for registration and check-in, tracking attendance, and so on, and many other features. Some other options that parishes are using: Eventbrite, Cognito Forms, Gravity Forms, and Sign Up Genius. Those are a few other simple event registrations. They may work for you as well in some other things, but I mention those because some parishes have explored looking at those, but we'll just be looking at focusing on Realm today. One word about the reopening covenant. If you're not aware of it, the diocesan covenant for regathering as it relates to managing registration and attendance tracking. So the guidelines state that this document needs to be signed by anyone attending in-person worship. So the document includes some steps and measures that those attending in person will take to keep themselves and others safe. And you can incorporate this into your reservation process. And we'll be covering this as we look at Realm. So why use Realm? So Realm is where you're already keeping all of your contact records for your parish. It's available online. So the information on who is coming is instantly available to parish leaders through the app or online through the website. So along with all the contact information. This also integrates with the Realm communication tools and check-in and attendance tools. It's an easy way and a great way to get people and encourage parishioners to get more familiar and engaged with Realm. So a chance to kind of roll it out a little further into your congregation and to get more volunteers involved also in managing it at sort of no additional cost. It's all part of the system. So I also just included here a few examples, and again, we'll send these out to you if you're interested. A few examples of parishes who are using around the country, so different contexts and spaces where they're using Realm for their Sunday reservations, worship reservations. So you can get an idea and have some examples of those. One at the bottom there, Church of the Pilgrims isn't using it for reservations, but is a very attractive looking Realm page on their site. So if you wanted to kind of boost up your Realm presence on your website, check out that, and maybe that'll be helpful for you. So what's next? So I would, after this session, share information from this session with others in your parish. If you haven't done that, if you haven't done it yet, survey members in your parish on reopening. That's a standard process, and templates are available on our website for doing that. Submit the regathering plan, select a church service reservation system, add the information to the website and in parish communications, including the covenant. Ensure support staff or volunteers have access to the information to actually use Realm. And again, information on all of this is available on our site. So that's what I wanted to kind of cover in the my initial introduction, just to put this into the context of what we're talking about. If we could go to Pam now, I'm going to hand it over to Pam to talk about go into some dive into Realm and show you some ways you can track the attendance and reservations.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Great. Just want to thank all of you for some time again this morning to go over some things, some ideas, ways, practices that you might use Realm. I am going to attempt to share my screen this morning and make sure I do it correctly this time. So we're going to go with a desktop. I'm hoping I'm doing the right one, Peter, so we'll find out. First of all, as Peter has mentioned, there's a lot of thought processes to be put in place before you ever reach the point of starting to allow people to register for attending your services. Determining how many people can be allowed in the building and that sort of thing, and making that information available possibly through multiple sources, maybe through your website, or maybe even using Realm through the news feed to your large church group inside Realm to send out information through the news feed about your planned reopening and the things that you want the members to think about as they plan to come back into the building, and possibly making them aware before they even go to the registration process of a little bit about how it will work, the things that you are asking them to do, such as signing the covenant and that sort of thing. So they've kind of been given a heads up initially before they even go in to think about the registration process. Then each of you will determine for your specific building and the capacity of your building how you need to build out your registration, how many people will be allowed into the building for any particular service. And so I'm picking it up at the point that pretty much all of that has taken place, and now you're ready to have some type of registration form available for people to sign in and register. And I am going to say what I have set up here is just a scenario, a one way of capturing this information. As I sat down to even start trying to build out a type of a registration form inside RAM for registering for the services, my mind was going all over the place with so many different ways and options to do this. And of course, in the short amount of time I have, I don't have time to show you all of those. So I've built out a couple just to maybe get the wheels turning for you to be able to start thinking about what type of registration form will work best for your particular parish, and having people sign in and register. Within using Realm in the registration event area is where you can create a form, so to speak, a registration form that people, you can have the link available on your website. You can push the link out through your news feed. You can literally copy and paste the link and send it out that way to various people that you might want to send it to directly. So you'll have the ability to grab the link and use it. And I'm going to have to do something right here real quick because I'm seeing I'm trying to move this down so I can see more of my screen. There we go. So what I'm showing you is definitely just ideas, just the beginning of ideas for you to decide what type of registration process is going to work well for you. So what I've created here is a couple of different scenarios on how people might be able to register. And I'm going to go in and kind of show you what I built first of all and my thought process behind it. If I can get my link to open up. Okay, so we know when we create an event registration inside Realm, it does provide you with links and ways to put the information out for the people to grab the links and start the registration process. And what they will see as they go through the registration process will be the result of how you built out the registration. So this is just an example, and I threw several different ideas pretty much into the same example. So first of all, we created our registration and we named it. This description box may come in very handy and very useful for you as people go in to register. First of all, for you to share with them, that you're excited for everyone to be coming back together, and also some of the instructions for them to understand as they go through the registration process. I built this in a scenario where, so maybe typically on a Sunday morning, you might have one worship service where you can accommodate, 500 people or more. But because of the situation now and only being able to accommodate a small number of your regular attendees, this scenario is that you have decided to offer 3 different service times so that hopefully you can accommodate everybody. So maybe you're going to have a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock service. So in that scenario, what I did was I basically told them in the description that they will need to select from the available service times the ones that they plan to attend to make the reservation for that service time. For accommodating a specific number of people and only needing one person to go in and register several people, like an entire family or maybe some distant relatives, or even just some other people that aren't part of the family that they might be bringing in to attend the service. So I've worded it in a way that they're going to need to be sure to provide contact information for anyone that they register as a guest. In other words, you guys don't already have that information inside your Realm system. So I'm making it very clear that they need to provide this contact information. And as Peter has already suggested, there's many reasons why you need that contact information. Number one is just for you to have a record of who attended and possibly do follow-up with them. Number two could be if we hope not, someone did in that particular service they attended become ill, you would know who attended and want to reach out to everyone that was in that service to make them aware of the situation. But there could be many reasons why after the attendance, after the service, you would want to reach back out to those individuals. So that's why you want to stress, as someone registers people, that you definitely need that contact information. And then, as he's also mentioned, needing everyone to agree to the covenant for regathering and worship. And I've added a couple of scenarios here for handling that. Now, one of those is that we're going to, and I didn't have time to put them all in here because I didn't get the covenant and wasn't able to start working on building those questions in until earlier this morning. So I've just built a few in just for you to see how it might work. So one way to get people to agree to the covenant and to do it digitally rather than filling out a piece of paper, signing it, and handing that piece of paper back over to someone, which means we're having that personal contact that we're trying to avoid. But there's a couple of options here. One is it's important that you initial each of the covenant requirements or suggestions or however you want to word it for regathering as you complete the registration. Now, maybe not so much, but just again as an option, you can even attach this covenant to the registration and suggest that they download a copy. If you want a signed copy, whether you want them to bring it with them to worship or you want to retrieve it in some other form. So a couple of different options on how they will complete that covenant and the requirements on that covenant. Now, third option is you might have them initial the requirements through the registration process, but then provide a copy that they can download, maybe not so much to sign and return to you, but for them just to have for their own purposes of going back and reviewing the covenant and refreshing their memory with the items that they agreed to on the covenant. So all of that can be made, the information can be made available to the people as you enter in this description area as you start building your registration form. Now, as we create these registration forms, which we would assume are going to be for a specific date, do keep in mind that once you create this event registration, you will have the ability to copy it and just create new ones for the future Sundays that you might need a registration process in place and just change the dates on those. And of course, in this situation, we've said that we're going to have a physical location where they are going to meet. I'm not going through every step along the way of creating an event. Some of these are just self-explanatory, and you can, if you haven't done it before, you can easily figure it out. Oh, when you are ready for people to be able to register, you will want to be sure you change this from being visible to staff only to everyone when you're ready for the registration process to start. And then you set the registration period that is open for this particular registration. And as you choose to, you can share this registration event in through RAM, in the community side of RAM, on the news feed. If many of you have a good portion of your membership already logging into RAM, downloading the RAM Connect app, and you are communicating with them through the news feed, that would be an option to share the registration also through the news feed. Or again, the other option is if you don't want to share it on the news feed, and then you will choose to grab the links and make the links available in the places that you would like people to go to retrieve the links. Of course, the contact person, now here's what I did. This is just an example. I don't know that this is going to work for each of you. So what we determined is we're going to have 3 services, a 9, a 10, 11. We've determined we can accommodate up to 50 people per service, which means for the day, the maximum capacity for the registration process would be 150 individuals registering. And because we want to capture the information about those that are attending, not just the one registering, but the others that are attending as well, we've selected the option of allowing that one individual to register other individuals using the named guest option versus the other option is the unnamed guest. So we've selected those options, and I'm sorry, but I've got something on the bottom of my screen, and I'm trying to move it out of the way so I can get to the bottom of my screen. There we go. So then, of course, you would hit the next option to go to the next screen. And that would take you to the registration types. Now, this is one idea, not to say that all of you will do it exactly like this. But what I did in this scenario, we said we're going to have 3 services. We can accommodate 50 people at each service. So we've created our registrations for the 9 a.m. service, the 10 a.m. service, the 11 a.m. service, and we've matched each of those registrations out to no more than 50 people can register per service. So this is, like I say, you'll have to think whether this particular type of registration is going to work for you, or you might want to set your registrations up in a little bit different way, where maybe you've got the registrant head of household and then the guest registrant as different registration types or registration scenarios. So this is the part that I was rolling around so many ideas in my head on how do I want to set this one up. I felt like this was maybe the simplest way and the way I wanted to present today. But as you start thinking through and even building registration forms and walking through and testing them yourself, you may come up with another way that you want to identify your registration types. But the point being here is, determined by your registration types, you can limit how many people can register by the registration type. So therefore, even though the day has a maximum capacity of 150, I've limited my services to 50 people each service. Okay, now after I've created those, of course, we know there's not going to be any cost. You're probably not going to be providing additional items for them to select to request or purchase or whatever. So I kind of skipped by both of those, and I went down to the custom question area, which are questions that I'm going to present to the people that are registering for them to answer. This is where I built in, off of the covenant for regathering in worship, just basically started at the top, where they're agreeing to these different items, like wear a mask or scarf over my nose and mouth at all times in the church buildings, except momentarily to receive the sacrament or lead worship through an assigned speaking part. So I kind of condensed that down for our training purposes this morning, but all I did was come in here and say I wanted to add a question. And the idea here is I made it a text question because what I'm asking them to do is initial these, put their initials in the text box as to say that they are agreeing to this. Now, another option could have been that I could have made these yes or no questions. So then, of course, they would have needed to have answered yes in agreement to all the questions. So again, there's more than one way that you can set up the scenario for them to even answer these questions. The idea being doing it digitally, doing it online, you having captured that information on the back end internally inside Realm, and having that documentation even for printing purposes or PDF purposes or whatever, if you needed to pull up and have confirmation that everyone in attendance did agree to that covenant. So you would just continue adding and asking the questions off of the covenant in the form that you would like them to be entered, either where they have to put in their initials or they could just kind of say, yes, I agree to this, and build out your questions. Now, in addition to that, I also provided a couple of documents that they will be able to download and have available for their own benefit. One of which is, and this was kind of an assumption on my part, that you guys are going to create some kind of a PDF document of regathering information, regathering instructions, what they might expect when they arrive at your parish for the services, to be prepared that there may be some type of a check-in process. So I created and attached a pretend regathering information document just to show you how that would work. And then, like I said, the other option could be providing them a copy of that covenant for regathering whether you want them to download it, sign it, and return it to you, or just to have for their own benefit, just to keep it in front of them to remember as they go into the building the things that they've agreed to do or to not do. I know personally myself, even as I've attended my local church that I attend, you know, we are so accustomed to going up and talking and chatting and hugging, and, you know, sometimes I have to stop and remind myself, because it's just so natural to do that, that I have to stop and say, oh, wait, no, I want to talk to Susan, but I'm going to stand over here and we're going to talk 6 feet apart or whatever. So it just kind of helps to keep it in the forefront and remind them of what they have agreed to. So I created this registration, and then, of course, I saved it. And then the next step, initially, I might have it available to just staff, so I can kind of keep working on it and testing it out and making sure it's what I want it to be. But you do want to make sure that you have made it available to everyone when you're ready for it to go live and have people to start registering. When you're ready to make it available, then you will be able to go to that registration form and choose to share it. Now, when I choose to share it, again, I can share it on the news feed or not, which is a great way. If your church is using RAM and your members are using the RAM Connect and the news feed is part of your normal procedures, then it's great to share it on the news feed. But when I'm ready to make it available in other platforms rather than just on the news feed, notice then I can grab these links. I can have a public link that I can copy to the clipboard. I can have something I can put on my website, just copy it to the clipboard and embed it on the website. If you are going to be sending out any printed material even, providing a QR code for people to be able to scan the code to start the registration process. So you'll just need to determine, once we create our registration form, all the different ways that you want to make it available for your members to have access to it, and in the easiest way, knowing your people, knowing how, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but how computer literate or not they might be, what are the different ways that we need to make it available to our people. Okay, now once you put it out there, what I meant to do while I was in there, let me go grab it again. I'm going to copy this link to the clipboard to kind of walk through and show you this one that I created, what it might look like as somebody is going through the registration process. So give me just a minute over here to, let's see, there we go. I'm just dropping the link in so I can get to the form to show it to you. Okay, so here we go. So we created our form. It's got the information at the top, where we're going to be meeting. Then here's that description area that I was talking to you about earlier. Now, my thought is that, yes, this information is here as we start the registration process, but you may have already put this same information out to your members even before they click register for the event. So as to make sure they understand the importance of providing the contact information for those that they might register, and initialing the covenant requirement or checking the yes box or whatever they need to do, and also making them aware that they're going to have an opportunity to download a copy of the covenant as they go through the registration process. So, you know, this would be, once you determine what your processes are, a great tool for helping them as they start through the registration process. Then, of course, I'm just going to type in a name so I can get started here. You want to make sure, as people are registering, if, of course, they're not already in your church family in your database, that you're capturing that contact information. So if needed after the event, we can reach back out to them. So you'll notice here I'm capturing, and I didn't have to build this into the registration form itself, but because I'm registering someone, it's automatically asking, and it is required for an email address and a name. and then also a phone number. And then, of course, we'll hit next. At this point, if Sarah is wanting to register some other individuals, then, of course, you see she has the option of adding a guest. So we're going to say she's going to bring Tom, and it may be she's bringing Sally. And so now I'm going to click Next when I've added my guest. And now it's taking me into the form itself. You notice it says for Sarah to choose a registration type. So our registration types, again, were what service. So if she's planning to attend the 9 a.m. service, she'll select that. And then here are the questions for Sarah. And in this case, we wanted them to initial these questions. Now, we made them required, and we know they're required because of the asterisk that we see at the end of each question. And then we have Tom, and again, it's automatically asking us for his email and phone number. I didn't have to build it into the registration. It's automatically part of the registration system that it's asking for his email address and his phone number. And you want to have already reiterated over and over and over to the people that are registering guests the importance of you having that information and being sure that they provide it. I'm not going to take the time to fill it out right now. And then again, you know, let me go back. I had to remember what time we registered for. So they're going to come to the 9 a.m. service, or they may go to the 10 or the 11 or whichever one. But then Tom also has to agree to the covenant if this is the way it needs to work. So you can have each person having to initial. And then here's Sally, and again, a place for her email, her contact information, what service she's signing up for, and again, how she is agreeing to the requirements, just by either yes, no, or initialing, or however you choose to do it. And once I have completed that as Sarah, then I'm going to click Next. So we have 3 registering at the 9 a.m. service. And at this point, we're looking at our information. We're looking at Sarah's registered, Tom's registered, Sally's registered. If I needed to go in and make some changes, I could. But I want to bring to your attention, I've already told the person registering, possibly in the description box or even prior to them starting the registration process, that they will have a couple of documents that they will be able to download as they go through the registration. Notice that you can even add notes in here for the document. In this case, it says, please download and bring a copy, or just download for your own personal use or whatever. And then I'm able to download. I'm not going to take the time to log in to do it, but I'm able to download those documents just by clicking on the document. And now at this point, I go ahead and choose register, and it tells me print this page for your records. An email was also sent to Sarah for the registration process. Now this is how it would look to those individuals that are registering. So of course you want to have walked through it yourself, tested it out yourself. So if somebody calls you with any questions about it, you'll have experienced it and be somewhat familiar with helping them if they need any assistance with the registration. But on the back end now, the people that are managing this event, we now have the ability to see how many people have registered. And it's being slow. We will get there. The wheels are spinning. What I did was I clicked where it showed the registered capacity, and it takes me to those that have registered. Now notice it starts out showing 3 people that have registered, but each of these 3 people have registered guests. So I can switch this from just seeing the registration party to seeing all the registrants. And it even tells me who they were a guest of. Now at this point, I have a couple of options. Notice I have the ability to print a registrant list, and because I have people registering for different services, I might want to filter this to just printing the registrant list for those that are attending the 9 a.m. service. So then, of course, I can select all of those individuals, and if I wanted a paper copy or even a CSV, and bear with me, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. If I do, I apologize. But anyway, here is those that have registered for the 9 a.m. And even who they are a guest of on a somewhat of a paper format. And then I could come back and filter it to those that have registered for the 10 a.m. or the 11 a.m. services as well, and do the same thing. As you are preparing, I'm going to go back to the, well, I'll just do all registrants. As you are preparing to meet, anytime you would like to send out information or communicate with those that have registered, and it may be everyone including the guest, or it may be just the person who registered. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one. The person who registered them. Notice at any time I can grab these individuals and I can send out emails of additional information that I want them to receive, or maybe even attach to this email some additional documents like the covenant or the need to knows or things like that. So if they, for whatever reason, didn't grab the documents while they were registering, then you could send them out also as an email and say, just in case you failed to download these, you know, here they are again for your convenience. You can download them from here. So you'll be able to manage up to the time the event is about to start and communicate with all of those that have registered. Now, there's going to need to be some type of a check-in process when you start your event, when people start showing up at the door, to make sure that the people that registered are allowed in the building. If there's too many people showing up, of course you want to make sure those that registered are the ones that get first priority for attending, getting in the building or whatever. I don't know if you'll have any of those types of problems of maxing out your numbers. There's a couple of ways that you could actually be tracking in a check-in method those people that are showing up for the event. One would be to use our check-in system to create what we call a check-in kiosk. That what I did was I've actually linked this check-in kiosk, and I set up a scenario of having already had an event on September the 16th, because you know you can't do a check-in on an event that hasn't happened yet. So that I could show you what it would look like, I created a kiosk and linked it, and you would do this, you would be able to do this as you proceed through your check-in process. So see, I linked this check-in kiosk back to a registration event, not a group, and then the event that I selected, notice I can choose add a registration event, was the one, this, well, not remove, but I've already linked it, so I won't try to link it again, but I'll just click on add registration event, and what it's going to show up is all of those events that are happening as of today. So see, I can't pull up the one that's not going to happen until next Sunday because it's not happening yet. Excuse me. However, when I reach that day, then I'll be able to link that event over to the kiosk to start the check-in process. So one way to start the check-in process is through the computer, through a computer system, through Realm. I'm sorry, I'm dropping a cough drop. I'm getting a tickle. And if you have someone, the people that are going to be managing the check-in, if they are comfortable doing a check-in on a computer system, then as people walk up, they will be able to use the Realm check-in system. I apologize. They'll be able to use the Realm check-in system and pull up those individuals that have registered and check them in. Now, at the time they're checking them in, it's also internally inside Realm flagging them as having been in attendance that day. So it's a way to use the computer at the time they're showing up at the door to go ahead and get them checked in and get their attendance tracked that they did attend the event. Now, some of you may have the people that are going to be managing and running this check-in process that are not quite so comfortable using a computer check-in system. So the alternative to using the Realm check-in system could be back to this event that I was able to literally print, if this is what people are going to be most comfortable with, print out a list for that person to have that is standing there checking the people in as they walk up, and literally maybe just having a highlighter and just marking them off as they show up at the door for those people that maybe are not as comfortable trying to do a check-in process on a computer. Now, you would want to also have if you had the room and you had not maxed out and somebody showed up with some additional guests, you would want to have a way for them to add that information if it's on a separate piece of paper or just on the bottom of your registration form or whatever, to capture that information about those people that kind of walked up, making sure that you capture their email address, their phone number, whatever information you feel like you need. So another option I was going to suggest as you start rolling this out to getting people back in the building again, maybe the first Sunday or two, if you're not ready to do a computerized check-in, maybe you start with a paper form like this for the first Sunday or two, and then transition over to using the check-in system with people that you've trained and are comfortable and understand how to use the system. Now, as I said, when you check them in through the system, their attendance is already tracked. However, if you, and I'm going to have to go back to the one that's already happened to show you this, so let me go to my past events. If you want to do some type of a manual tracking of attendance for the importance of knowing who attended during this time of the limited capacity, once the event has happened, then you will be able to go back into that event, go to the registrants, and you will be able to, I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. You will be able to mark them in attendance. And the reason I can't is I've already marked these in attendance. I apologize for that. But you'll be able to go back after the fact and mark the people in attendance if you choose to do the paper format. And basically they will show up as having attended those events. So then you've got that historical information captured again of who attended the event. Now, you've got the tracking from the registration of who signed up, but then going back and actually marking the attendance gives you the historical tracking of who actually showed up and attended that day in the case that you need to reach out and connect with those individuals. One more thing you might want to do is after the event has happened, you might want to, as we learned last week, we talked about using pathways. So you can literally take everybody that attended the event, and I say they attended the event and they are in your database or will be added to your database, and then you could drop those people directly into a pathway. And we talked about specifically last week that newcomer follow-up process. So you could drop them into pathway, and then we start down that trail of what we talked about last week of having a procedure and a mechanism and a way of connecting with these individuals, and also having tracked internally inside Realm the historical factor that we did reach out and connect with them. They did process through this pathway. So it can start with a registration event where then that can be linked over into a check-in process, and after the event, those people can be also placed into a pathway to allow the continuation of reaching out and connecting with these individuals. You know, if they're coming back in the building, and I don't know if you'll have anything that they can fill out paper-wise inside the building where they might say, you know, I'd like maybe one of the clergy to contact me, or those types of questions we talked about last week, even with them being back in the building, then that could be the process of them being in the pathway and reaching out and making sure those contacts are being made. So I'm going to kind of sum this up, and then we'll have some time to take some questions. So the idea is, first of all, that you have to make your determinations on your process of how you are going to open back up. What type of capacity you're going to be able to accommodate. How you're going to provide that information out to your people to know that you're opening back up and you'll need to register. And then finally, get them in the process of registering. Well, let me back up to say, first of all, decide on whether you're going to do that. Once they have, let me back up. I'm getting myself confused. Once they have registered, how are we going to check them in? How are we going to know who showed up? Deciding on whether you're going to do the realm check-in process and have it all done internally, or if you're going to do the manual or paper check-in process and somebody come back after the fact and mark those individuals as having attended. So communicate and instruct, provide the form, and then provide a process for identifying after the fact who attended the particular services. And then lastly, just what is going to be your follow-up plan for those people that did attend? Are you going to want to put them in a pathway and do some continual follow-up with those individuals? Or even if not in a pathway, just some kind of email to send out to all of those that attended, just, you know, thanking them for their attendance, and of course encouraging that you hope that they'll be back again for your next Sunday services. And we all know that what we're going through right now, we're kind of stumbling our way through it because this is something we've never experienced before. We're all trying to come up with what's going to be the best way to reopen the doors. You know, it was pretty easy to close the doors, but then now what is going to be that process? So what I'm going to say is, the first Sunday, the first time you go through this process, then maybe that's a good time to sit back and evaluate, you know, did the process work? Was it easy? People feel comfortable going through this process? Or for the next follow-up Sunday, or a time for people to come back together, is there something maybe we could have changed or tweaked through our process that would make it even easier for people as they're starting to come back into the building? So that evaluating after the fact, did it work? Are we happy with our process? Could we have done something better and make it easier for the next time around? So that's pretty much the information I wanted to share with you today. I did want to backtrack just a second because I want to apologize to all of those that you were in the session last week when we were talking about pathways. I realized that I did misspeak about something, and I want to clarify that. I always feel bad if I say something wrong to a client that I'm working with. I had about 3 or 4 different things rolling around in my head all at the same time, and when I was talking about creating that pathway for that virtual follow-up, I misspoke that you could remove somebody from a particular step of a pathway, and I was wrong when I said that. What I meant to say was you could go ahead and mark as complete any steps that they don't need to process through in that pathway that you might have created last week for that virtual newcomer follow-up. And I didn't want to mislead anybody at all. I wanted to correct myself on that. I've been kind of beating myself up over that since last week, and I want to make sure that I clarified that with all of you. And if you have any more questions about that, you know, Peter can get me in touch with you directly, and I'm happy to discuss that with you. But anyway, for this week, I hope you've gotten some information, some things to think about, and start planning for your reopening. And at this time, Peter, I am going to turn it back over to you and or Rebecca in case there had been any questions we need to follow up with.
Sure. Thanks, Pam. One question was, could, we were talking about the check-in and the attendance tracking process, could that be done from the mobile app or is that's something that has to be done through being actually logged in? Do you know if that can be done through the app?
Yes, I know what you're saying. One thing I always say about the mobile app is the RAM Connect app is what I call a mini-me of RAM. You know, when you're logged in through your browser into RAM, is in this admin area, the things that you see here, these things you won't see on the RAM Connect app. The RAM Connect app is more for communication and connecting with the members. The administrative functions of RAM you will find when you log into RAM. Now, what I will say about that is, for each of you with your phones, provided it's an iPhone or a smartphone, I can pick up my iPhone right now, and rather than going to the RAM Connect app, I can go to my Safari, my browser, and I can put in ownram.org, and I can log in as if I'm logging in here. Although, do be aware, when you bring this up on a phone, the screen is much smaller, and it won't present itself in the same way that you see it here. So for me personally, I get a little frustrated trying to do some admin task on a small device like a phone, but I'm not saying you can't. You just would have to log in through Google or Safari into RAM, not through the app. But it could be accomplished through that device if you wanted to.
Check-in's not available. Check-in's not going to work even when you log in through the browser on a mobile device.
Okay.
Check-in's
all right.
it's not there.
Thank you.
Yeah, it
okay,
used to be
Rebecca.
there like 3 or 4 years ago, but it was a bad user experience because of the screens and stuff, so that's not there. But, and I have to go to another meeting, but that's why I just want to jump in here. But I will also say that our product management team is looking at and researching on how we can have check-in in a mobile experience.
Okay,
so
great.
Don't give up on that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
And know that they are looking at it. We have no time frame, of course, but they also realize that during this time and moving forward, whatever our new normal is going to be, that is something that we need sooner rather than later. So that is being researched by product management.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. I knew it was there at one time. I was not aware that they had removed it.
Yeah, so it was. It's been gone
that.
for 3 or 4 years now. Just wasn't a good experience. So
okay.
I am going to have to jump out and go to another appointment. But Peter, you probably see, I've offered to help. I've heard Pam offer to help. Support's here to help you guys. We're willing to support can do the same as me, or Pam will sit with you and just help you set up your registration event, because we know each of you have different things, depending on what county you're in. We see there's different restrictions, and it's unfortunate, but is the way it is. And so we are all here to help you any way we can. I know Peter is also there and has helped some of you already setting this up. So don't feel like you've got to figure this out on your own. We are here to help you.
Thanks, Rebecca. If someone had a question for you, how would they best way to
let me just go ahead. I will put my email address in here. It's very easy, except you need to know how to spell Rebecca. If you remember, it's like the Bible, so if you remember that. But you can email me your questions, and then I'll get back to you. Usually I get back in the same day unless I'm really swamped or off that day, not working. So feel free to reach out to me, and if I see that it's something that I feel like our support department can help you with, I will move you over and ask support, and they're very good about jumping in and getting back to you on helping you. But that's my email address right there, so feel free to reach out to me.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca, as always.
All right, thank you guys. I'm going to jump off, but I know we really appreciate all that you guys do, and we hope this is helpful, and we're here to help.
Great. Pam, one other question that came up, just some clarity on it, was around people who register for an event who are not like Realm profiles, who don't have a profile in Realm, they register, and being able to sort of track them over time. So if they're a guest or something, or they're a registrant and they're not in a profile in your database.
Yeah, Yeah, you do have the ability after the event, when you go to your past events, excuse me, I don't know where this tickle came from this morning. So you go to your past events, and after the fact that the event has happened with your registrants, you will have, if they're not already in the database, this one is not, it was not really set up properly, but you do have the ability after an event has happened to have the system add profiles to your database for those individuals. And that does speak to the point that some people may register for the event that are not in your database. And so it will be for you to make a decision if you want or need those people added to your database as a profile, or just let them sit here as someone who registered for an event. But after the event has happened, you will have the ability to, well, actually do several things: add them to an event, mark attendance, and even have them added to a pathway, just from the fact that they registered for an event. But if you want to proceed with them, if you want them to be in a pathway and you want to track attendance, then you will want to add them to your database. So you'll have them not just attached to an event registration, but actually as a person in your database. Okay?
Okay, good. And there was a note about the covenant. Obviously, with the covenant on the registration form, I think Joel mentioned they have a checkbox for that, just to kind of indicate, if by checking this box, you indicate that, you know, that the registrant and guests are consenting to the covenant. So you can do that different ways, and you'll see that if you use that registration feature, that you can have people sign their name. You can have it for each registrant, you can do it, or you can just have it be, I think for each guest, you can do it. So you can have each guest have to check off the covenant, or you could have a question for each guest, or you could have it just be the main registration, be the household who's attending is agreeing to the covenant, to a checkbox, and then even a signature field, like a text field. Type your name in here to consent to that. One of the quirks we have with Montgomery County is obviously a slight, the tricky one in terms of the restrictions based on a square footage per household, which is a little tricky compared to the other counties, and DC, which is based on a capacity limit. So that was just something to think through as far as that. There are some ways around that, as far as saying, okay, well, you could have this many households, so put a limit on the number of households, as that being a maximum, say 10 or 11, however many you can fit into your space. If you calculate the amount of square footage you have, how many households you can fit, and then have that be kind of a registrant type. So, and then say, okay, we can basically have up to 10 households, one person who's the household contact, and then another type if they're guests, then they're guests of that household. But that would basically max out the number of households who could attend for your square footage. It's a little bit awkward and unique in our local area as to how Montgomery County has done it. So I'm just looking through to see if there's any other questions here. There's been quite a lot in the chat. So, and so thanks everyone. If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and put them in there now. The walk-ups, I think if anyone has questions on that, the walk-ups, like as Pam mentioned, there are several ways of handling those. People who just walk up who are not registered, who did not register, but who just show up. Pam, you mentioned there's the way to kind of address those for people who arrive, but who didn't use the online reservation, and to just check them in. If they're not a member of the parish, they arrive, they're not a member, they want to attend the service, what would the process be for that?
I'm sorry, will you say that again? I kind of lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, so if someone attended at the door, they hadn't reserved, they didn't use the reservation, and but they were not in the database, and you wanted to check them in.
If you are using the Realm check-in system, and the process of, and I didn't do a lot of training on check-in today, but when you set up your check-in kiosk, how you set your check-in kiosk, you can actually set your kiosk where you can add people directly at the kiosk. You know, just like any Sunday you have new people showing up. Let's say you're using, just on a traditional Sunday morning, you're using the kiosk for checking in your children, and you have a guest show up with their children who are not in your database. So as you set your kiosk up, you will have the ability, and I'm going to see if I can show this to you real quick. I'm going to go ahead and do launch kiosk, and let me get that out of the way. So you can do the self check-ins, you can do the assisted check-in. But with the assisted check-in, with that type of a kiosk, it is going to allow, assisted meaning there is someone running the kiosk, not the person actually checking themselves in. Now, I have to start a check-in process on a day that I've got activity going, and just by starting this kiosk today, I don't have an event actually happening, so I don't know that I can even actually get to what I wanted to show you. But at the point of checking someone in, if they're not in the database, at the assisted check-in, they will have an option to, quote, add a guest, where they'll be able to enter the basic information about that individual. That individual is captured inside the check-in system. Basically, they didn't make it into the event registration system at that point. They made it into the check-in system. And then if you felt the need to, you would be able to go back after the fact to that event registration and add their information so it's captured in the event, or just proceed from the fact that you checked them in if you decide you want to add them to your database and drop them into a profile and work from there. But if you're using the Realm check-in system, there will be an option for you to add them at that point. And then, of course, if you're doing some kind of paper method, of course, just capturing their information that way. But ultimately, either way, they could eventually get added into Realm for the follow-up and even dropping them into a pathway.
Okay, great. Well, let's see, any other questions from Jennifer? Jennifer, do you just want to unmute and just ask your question?
Sure. I just noticed, can you hear me? My microphone is sometimes
Yep. Yep.
I just noticed that when you're creating the event, you have the option to say that it's a repeating event. It says this event repeats, and then I guess you can choose whether it repeats once a week, once a month, etc. If you choose that, does that create individual weekly events that a person could go in and sign up for this week, but not that week?
Could be another, yeah, that could be another option. What I showed everybody was just creating one and just copying it from week to week as an option. The other option is if you wanted to set it up as a recurring weekly type of scenario. It depends on the back end on how you want to come back and look at that data later. If you want to see those as totally separate created events, or just one that regularly repeats. I believe either way would work for you. Like I say, every one of you has certain restrictions and guidelines that we're trying to accommodate. So you'll just have to make the decision what you think is going to work best for you.
One thing, when you get the slides, you'll see the examples that I had included. Different parishes have set this up different ways. So one parish, for example, had set up all the registrations, all the services in the system, and then they were asking people to sign into Realm, so to encourage them to actually use their Realm login, and then go in there, go into the events, and just select the services they wanted to attend. So they could do it without having to send out a link to each one. People could just go in and register themselves for the service ahead of time. So you can schedule all your services, and they can just register themselves in there. Another way of doing it is, as Pam demonstrated today, is to take like a link to each event and send that out individually. So the upcoming week or next 2 weeks, here's the links, or put those links on the website or in the newsletter, so people can click on that. But one way I had seen was basically saying, hey, just log into our system and select which Sunday you'd like to come and register yourself. And that way,
Exactly.
it's just a login. Of course, that does mean that they need to use their sign-in.
Correct.
And when someone is registering for an event, if they are a member, it will recognize their email address, and will ask them, would they like to sign in or continue as a guest if their email address is already in the database. So if they're registering, and once they start to register and Realm says, hey, I recognize you, I know that email address, that's familiar. You don't have to sign in, but it gives you the option of signing in at that point if it recognizes you as a member in the database. So I think the registration process is, they don't have to sign in, but there's the option of signing in. But if you wanted to use this opportunity as a push to kind of get people to sign in and to send out like another round of invitations. One thing I was thinking was this also kind of ties into your stewardship pledge season and encouraging people to use Realm as well as you encourage people to make their annual pledges. Is that kind of getting people to use Realm for this also kind of gets them familiar with using Realm, and so also using it for their annual giving, which is a part of the system. So kind of may have an extra benefit as far as building familiarity there. So just an extra thought that I had. We are, I think, about...
Yeah, that's great. I was just going to say, I think it's best, my preference would be to have everybody to log in, but we all know that we do have some people that are not computer users, they're not comfortable with computers, and just to get them to, to click a link and fill out a form, is about all you're going to get out of them. So again, it's back to each individual parish and the people that make up your parish, and you knowing them better than anybody, coming up with the various options that is going to work for everybody.
Okay, Pam, could you, I guess you could stop the screen share now, actually. I'm just...
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know how to do that. Oh, here we go. Stop share. There we go.
Okay. So just wanted to thank everyone for attending today, and great to see you all here. We'll be sending out a recording of this session and the slides that we share, along with notes and the slides and a recording of this. So, and then please let people know about these sessions, the follow-up session on this on managing volunteers, which will be October the 1st. And we have other offerings available on the page for the School for Christian Faith and Leadership on the EDOW website. For those who are interested as well, this afternoon at 3, VTS, Virginia Seminary, is offering a webinar on live streaming. It's a refresh on live streaming. So if you're want to hop onto that, that's, I think, at 3 o'clock, and you can register on Eventbrite. So if anyone wanted to join that, if you were interested, that I found out about that yesterday. So just thought I'd mention that in our closing out.
Peter, can I say one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to remind everyone also, I showed you last week the Ministry Smart area. Be sure to utilize that tool. There is so much good information in there. Like I say, as we're all trying to figure this out together, how do we start our processes back up? That is a wealth of resources and short little videos that you can watch that can hopefully assist you and give you some ideas of ways that you can start opening back up again safely.
Exactly. Yeah, the slide, Ministry Smart's available in the top right corner of your Realm sign-in. So it's that little owl in the top right corner, and has a ton of stuff, and that's been expanded significantly recently. So, and it has a lot of like scenario type videos as well as some webinars you can kind of sign up for. So check those out, and certainly get any people you want to help you with volunteering to sign in and look at that as well, to get them kind of up to speed on some areas. And feel free to share the recording of this session if that's helpful for other people in your parishes. Thanks everyone for attending. We hope to see you and anyone you bring with you on the next session on managing volunteers. Until then, thank you all again. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.